librarian for the Nelson City. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Heather.
Well, it looks like it's going to be a really hotly contested race. That's from the results that we've seen so far. It looks very, very close, and I think it's going to stay that way for the rest of the evening. I'm not going to ask you political questions at this point. All right with you?
That sounds fine.
Okay. And maybe what we should go into is we're going to discuss the library instead. I don't know if you heard any of Sean Lamb's discussion, did you?
No, I didn't.
Okay. She made one very interesting comment. She's talking about right at the beginning of the century, in 1900, what the citizens of this town were looking for was a new library. Seems that the more we change, the less we change. But with recent development, maybe things are changing a little bit. And would you like to comment on that?
Certainly. Yeah, I think that's true that Nelson has been looking for a permanent facility for the library since its first had library service in 1891. So certainly over the last 5 years, we've had a very intense battle, 2 referendums, as you know, both of which we lost, looking for a new library facility. This new purchase of our old former RCMP building is a very positive move for us. There are major hurdles yet to be gone over, however, the major one being that we have to have a commitment from council to commit the funding for renovations. Buying the building is just the first step.
Right.
After that, there has to be the commitment to go ahead and make it a place fit for a library to be in.
Now, as I understand it, the initial cost was about $200,000 to buy the building.
$250,000, yeah.
$250,000, which is considered quite a deal.
Yes, it is actually. There's still a lot of people around Nelson who think the federal government should have given it to us for $1, but they weren't willing to do that. And so I think council did a very good job in negotiating a reasonable price.
Right.
Very reasonable price.
And that's all just happened within the last 2 weeks?
Yes,
Yeah.
It was quite, sort of threw us in a dizzy. We were just still recovering from the last referendum and figuring out where we were going to go from here, and we were quite surprised when this sort of dropped in out of the sky on us.
It did, didn't it?
Yeah, it did basically, yes.
Yeah.
We just sort of, suddenly it was there.
Right. Yeah, there wasn't really any previous word about this at all, and
No, there really wasn't, and I think it threw some of the library supporters for a bit of a loop, because we had essentially rejected that building in the past, only because the sand building really was an easier space. It was a nice big open rectangular space, and it was a little bit easier to renovate into a library, and also the floors aren't load-bearing in the RCMP building, but they can be made so without major expense.
without major expense.
To the best of our knowledge. Now, we haven't done a complete study of it yet.
Will that be up to the library board to make that study, or will it be up to the city of Nelson to do that?
The city's done a preliminary study, and the board had an engineer in looking at it briefly. We're now undertaking our own study with an architect to have a more detailed study of the costs of renovation.
Do you know when this takes place? I mean, when the deed actually crosses?
To the best of my knowledge, they won't take ownership until the beginning of January.
The beginning of January.
Yes.
And then from then, there is a possibility, I'm not sure if the new council will have to take this to public referendum again, to commit funds to renovating the library.
There is that possibility.
Yeah.
The board would certainly prefer not going to referendum again, for obvious reasons.
Right.
The major one that we've just been to referendum twice in very quick succession, and I think that the electorate is probably tired of hearing from us. So I think in a way it could be a negative thing for us to be involved in the referendum. Hard to say.
Right.
On the other hand, there are a lot of people out there who are obviously very tired of waiting for a library. We were quite gratified. We did a fundraising campaign recently, and this was before the news about the RCMP building, and we actually had about $5,000 come in a month. We have over 6,000 now, close to 6,500, but 5,000 of that came in when we were just in limbo. So it was out of pure faith and will of people to really have a new library in this town.
Yeah, because once council commits to the funds, then we have to go through the long process of actually going through renovations,
That's right.
which could take a year.
Potentially, or it could be done a lot quicker than that. We're looking at, the library board is looking at sort of an economy plan, not renovating the whole thing right off the bat.
Okay.
Our hope would be to put the main part of the library on the I guess the second floor, you would call it the second floor, the one that you access off of Stanley Street.
Right.
And then slowly work into developing the first floor, which is the one you come in off of Victoria Street.
Yes, that's right. And so then later on you could maybe put your you're talking about maybe putting a reference section on the second floor to begin with, or?
Well, we'd have the second floor would be the main part of the library, and then the basement or the first floor.
Right, I keep getting confused on
Yes,
this a bit. Yeah.
Partly because we've been talking about the sand building so long, and they always refer to the second floor as the one below it.
Okay.
It's very confusing. But the first floor, the one that you come in off of Victoria Street, eventually, if we expand, we'd probably put the whole children's section down there.
Uh-huh.
And have the rest of it upstairs.
Actually, that's I grew up in Ontario, and the library there was an old building, and it was just that way. The first floor was the children's section, and now you brought back that memory to me of because we used to go to the library once a week, and you go into the first floor and pick out your books, and Mom would be upstairs picking out her books, and it was part of a family event. That was part of our Saturday schedule, more or less.
I've heard comments from some mothers, especially mothers of very young children, that will bother them, having them in two separate places, because they like to be able to peek around the corner and make sure that their child isn't doing anything untoward, like emptying the catalog drawers or something.
Librarians would like that too, wouldn't they?
But I think it's probably the best thing we could split. I don't know what else we could, if we have to split it into two floors. It's been a difficult exercise for me to figure out how we would split it.
Because there is an elevator between the two floors, is there not? Or there's
not yet, but that's definitely in the works. We would really like to have an elevator in there, and I think the police would as well. So
right, and then the police would be on the very top two floors.
Yeah,
of the whole.
That's right. That's right.
So we do have a crooks and books situation
Yeah,
here.
that little phrase has certainly stuck around.
I like that one.
Yes. Yeah.
All right, so, and now also with a new library, I think you're going through a whole new board too, is that right? I mean, I just saw you had your annual general meeting.
That was the Friends of the Library, actually. There was some confusion about that, largely because of the Nelson Daily News headline, which was very confusing. In fact, that was the executive of the Friends of the Library, and they have stepped down, and there is a new executive coming in there. The board, in fact, will lose one or two people this year, but most of the rest of them will be staying on. So.
And the board is a volunteer situation?
Yes. And so is the Friends, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
The Friends is a support agency, really. They raise funds and they help us buy things for the library, and they represent the outlying areas as well as the city. They can have a group that can represent all of the people that we serve, whereas the board has to be just people from the city.
Right. Oh, I see. You've just recently upped the user rate for people outside of the city, is that correct?
Yes, after the referendum, we had some pressure from council, as a matter of fact, to raise the user fees, and we chose to double them at that point to bring them up closer to what people in the town were paying on their taxes.
I see. So what is the user fee for someone outside of the city?
There's sort of a sliding scale. If a juvenile borrower, who is anyone under 15,
oh yeah,
it's $14, and they can borrow 5 books at a time. An adult borrower, it's $30, and you can borrow 10 books at a time. The computer keeps track of all this.
Great.
And for a family, you can take out a family membership and borrow 25 books at a time for $50 a year.
And are people taking advantage of this?
Yes, yeah. We've had a few people downgrade. You know, they used to have a family and now they have an adult or something like that.
Right.
Because they felt they couldn't afford the $50. But most people have continued, and some people say that they figure it's a bargain at $50.
Oh, it is. I've just done an interview with Paul Gallowitz, which will be coming up actually next week, on what's happening with the sale of books in this country with GST and a new amendment to the copyright law, which is going to probably up the price of books even more. And I think we'll find that that the library will become an even more valuable resource to the whole community.
It's true already. Just recently we had an incident where a new, very popular book came out and it was over $30 for a hardcover edition. And people were, the staff at Oliver's were telling me that people were just commenting, I can't afford that, I'll wait till it comes to the library. So
that's right,
it
yeah.
does happen, yeah.
It does.
It, of course, will become more and more difficult for us to get those books as well. Our budget won't be able to stretch as far.
Right.
It's a great pity that the federal government is choosing so many measures to make it more difficult.
Right.
To make books accessible to people.
Now hold on to that thought for a minute, Deb. We're going to go back to Central School right now, to Marianne. I think she's ready to give us a new report on what's happening with the countdown at Central School. Are you ready, Marianne?
I sure am, Heather. Hi,
great.
Deb.
Hi, nice to see you again.
Nice to see you as well. We do have some figures on the board to my right, your left, that Gary might pan to a little bit later. Janet Postlethwaite took a count about halfway through. They are outdated, as Patrick mentioned last time. They change as we speak. When Janet took her official count, Bill Ramsden was leading at 541, Sharon Heflin at 493, Stan Grill 415, and Sandalane 111. I notice you've had those flashing on your screen there. With the aldermen, the 3 incumbents are leading. I don't know if you can see on the board, Heather, but John Neville was leading at 346. Then Donna McDonald 277, Martin Horswell 259, with Maureen Mason, George Miller, and Donna Graycheck coming up with the following 6. I think Patrick's here with me now, and he does have some updates for you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Maureen, we have, yes, sorry.
It's been a
long election. Here we go. It's only a civic election, not a federal election. It's a month. Sorry, Heather. We've got some updates, and they're almost done, actually. You can see behind us that the pile is rapidly diminishing, and we may probably within, we might actually have some final results by maybe about 11:15. Hopefully thinking, anyways. The last count I have, again, unofficial, is Bill Ramsden with 821, Sharon Heflin with 736, Stan Grill with 649, and Sandalane with 167. Clearly looks as though that Bill Ramsden is certainly got a definite lead there, and I'm sure the count can't change that much, but anything can happen still. There are still votes to be counted, and other election results are coming in. There was about 1.7 million people casting their civic votes this year, which is a little bit of interesting fact for you, Heather.
Thank you, Patrick.
So that's about the results that we have at this time. That we'll have more for you soon.
Okay, I will mention, Heather, the school trustees. And again, I don't know if you noticed on the board, we have Harold Nunn leading at 341. This is again when Janet took her count about 15-20 minutes ago. Then I think it's Randy Breiter at 327, Randy Birch at 298, and Bev Dendy's at 288.
Sorry, Marianne, that's Alan Birch.
I'm sorry, Alan Birch. Then Heather Tomlin 165 and Brian Williamson at 235. But again, these totals have all changed since we put them up on the board, and we'll update them as soon as we can.
Okay. Thanks.
Marianne, we've got a result from Area F, and this is preliminary again, but we've got Verl Fossey with 345 and Dick Hamakawa with 281. And
sorry, you mentioned before that Josh Smank seems to have taken Area E by quite a margin with 462 and 165. Or do you have an update on that?
No, I don't. I don't have an update on that yet. An interesting note, Sandy Santori seems to have taken the mayor's chair in Trail, but as yet we don't have a mayor for the city of Nelson, and hopefully we'll have one soon, as Trail is the only other area, our main city in the Kootenays, having a mayor's mayor's race. Leila Irvin got in by acclamation in Creston, and Audrey Moore got in by acclamation in Castlegar. So it looks as though at the moment Bill Ramsden has certainly buoyed the mayor's chair for the moment, but we may see a change at any time.
Great. Thank you for joining us again, Patrick. Unless you have any questions, Heather, we'll pass it back to you and Deb at the studio there.
Okay, everything seems to be fine here. Thank you very much. Thanks very much to Patrick for those interesting statistics and facts. We're all doing our homework.
I'll pass it on to him. He can't hear what you're saying right now.
Oh, he cannot?
No.
Okay.
Okay, thanks,
All right.
Heather.
Okay, thank you. Okay,
Bye-bye.
bye-bye. Okay, so here we are back in the studio. It looks like we're getting, well, we did a little count out in the, actually in the lobby a little while ago. We figured about 3,000 votes, so 3,000 people voted on an electorate of about 5,000 possible voters, and 60%, we figure about 3,000. So maybe within about the next half hour or so, we'll know. We might have a mayor for sure, but we'll just have to wait and see. Now, Deb, we were talking about the GST. It's going to add 7% tax to books. At the municipal library, you're going to pay that 7% too?
Well, we'll be paying the 7% initially when we buy the books.
Oh, yeah.
But there is a rebate to all municipalities. So we will be getting, I think, a 4% rebate. So in the end, we'll be paying 3%. But at the moment, we're not paying anything. So
Right. So are you
so
ordering books like crazy at this point, or?
Well, unfortunately, when you work on an annual budget, you can't do that.
You can't, can you?
It would be lovely to be able to do that and just order a whole bunch of books right now and sort of store them up.
Right.
But we can't really do that because we are operating on a, sort of a fixed budget for this year. So we haven't been able to do that. We are with a few things. For example, we got a Winter Games grant this year to buy sports videos and periodical subscriptions. And with the periodical subscriptions, we did buy 2- and 3-year subscriptions so that we wouldn't have to pay the GST on them, at least for a couple of years.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's great.
Yeah, that was really the most we could do, unfortunately.
So I'm just going to ask you one last question before we're going to go on to Margaret Stacy from the Capitol Theater next. And so then Deb will be able to leave. We've asked this question of various other guests here. Do you have a little wish list for Nelson, the city of Nelson?
For the city itself?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, certainly one of the things I would wish for Nelson is a new library facility, naturally.
Whole big brand new one,
right.
from scratch?
Well, even a nicely renovated RCMP building would be just fine with me.
Yeah.
Along with that, I'd certainly like to see higher education return to Nelson. That's a very strong wish for me. In the form of a fine arts school, like we had at David Thompson, or a 4-year university. Something, I think a fine arts school would be wonderful because it'd be something unique for the area. And we wouldn't be duplicating anything else that's happening. The closest would be Banff, and I think it would be just wonderful to have that in Nelson.
It would be.
So, along with the new library, that's my other wish for Nelson.
Well, you're sort of halfway there at this point.
Yes.
I mean, great progress has been made.
Big step.
It is a big step, big surprising step.
Yes.
Yeah, you'll almost be very happy.
Yes, well, it's certainly a relief to have the end at least in view.
Right. Okay. Well, I'm going to say farewell to you now, and good luck.
Thank you.
With the next step in the new library, and all the people who work at the library. You've got quite a few volunteers that help out there too, and
yes, we do.
And a staff that's mainly part-time, I think, aren't they?
Yes, mostly part-time, but some of them are fairly close to full-time, 30 and 32 hours.
Yeah, that's enough.
Yeah.
Sometimes. Yeah. Great. So I just want to say goodnight to you now, and thank you very, very much for coming. And if we can, could we go to a short PSA, and we'll bring Margaret Stacy on now. I don't think we have anything else coming from Central School. We've just had a few results now. And I'll just say goodbye to Deb, and we'll go to a short public service announcement. Okay, thank you.